The Vagabond, by Bryce Hatton. Inspired by the life and work of Marcus Barnard. Chapter 1. The Accident. Mars had never seen his father bleed. He had never imagined his father lying still on the wet asphalt, head turned the wrong way, legs twisted beneath the bumper. The rain fell in sheets, washing the town gray, carrying the smell of oil and wet leaves. Mars's boots were soaked. He couldn't feel his toes. He had run from the farmhouse, leaving the door swinging open behind him, the lamp inside swaying like a heartbeat. The neighbors had gathered, whispering like crows in the dark. No one spoke to him. No one knew what to say. His mother's face had turned strange, pale and tight. Her eyes were wide and wet, staring at nothing. She didn't cry. She just stood, shaking, hands folded, lips pressed in. Mars had never seen her quiet like that. He thought maybe she was broken too. He went to the car. The windshield was spidered with cracks. The hood was bent like a folded piece of paper. His father's eyes were closed. His mouth opened just a little, like he was surprised. Mars didn't know how to feel. He wanted to cry, but his throat was empty. He wanted to scream, but no sound came. He knelt beside him. The mud sucked at his knees. Rain ran down his cheeks, washing him and the man he loved in the same gray water. "Pa," he whispered, but the wind carried it away. The neighbors talked to each other in murmurs, shaking their heads. Mars didn't listen. He only felt the weight of the world, heavy and sudden, pressing down on his small shoulders. By morning, the town felt quieter. The mills ran, the cows lowed in the barns, the trains sang in the distance, but everything else had stopped. The smell of gasoline and wet earth hung in the air. Mars's mother moved silently, preparing breakfast that no one would eat. She placed the plates on the table like she had done every morning, but this time she did not sit. Mars sat on the steps outside. He watched the tracks glisten in the rain. They ran straight and long, far beyond the fields, past the woods, past the corn. He had followed them once as a boy, throwing rocks and sticks, imagining trains that could take him anywhere. He thought of the cars he had never ridden, towns he had never seen. That morning, something inside him shifted. He felt a pull in his chest, a restlessness he couldn't name. The house was too small. The town was too quiet. The grief was too heavy. He tried to talk to his mother, but her eyes never met his. She muttered something about staying close, about work and chores, about moving on. But Mars could not stay. He knew it. By evening, he had packed a small bag, bread wrapped in newspaper, his father's pocket knife, a change of clothes. He left quietly, so quietly that he didn't wake the dog. He went to the back door, glanced once at the house, and walked toward the tracks. The rails were cold under his hands as he ran his fingers along the steel. They hummed faintly in the distance, carrying the sound of a train far away, a train that seemed like it was calling just for him. Mars walked. The rain had slowed. Puddles mirrored the gray sky. He passed the barns, the empty fields, the occasional tree, until the town lights disappeared behind him. He did not think of tomorrow. He did not think of what would happen next. He only felt the pull of the road and the freedom it promised, the strange, empty kind of hope that only comes when the world has taken everything else. That night, he found a hollow beneath a sycamore tree. He curled up, wet and shivering, listening to the trains hum on the tracks. His father's voice echoed in his head, telling him to be careful, telling him to keep moving, telling him he was never too small to face the world. Mars did not sleep. He thought of his father, of the accident, of the town. He thought of the tracks and where they might take him. Somewhere far away. He imagined a man living by the rails, a man who was free, a man who could teach him what it meant to be alive. He closed his eyes, listening to the wind and the distant whistle of a train. And for the first time since the accident, he felt a flicker of something new. Something that felt like a choice. Something that felt like freedom. Chapter 2. Restless in Red Willow. The morning came slow and gray. Mars sat on the edge of the porch, watching the town wake up. Smoke rose from chimneys. Chickens clucked in the yards. A dog barked somewhere, but no one called his name. No one asked where he had been. He didn't belong here anymore. Not really. The house smelled of wood smoke and sorrow, but not of life. His mother moved through the rooms, quiet and distant, humming to herself sometimes, but her eyes were always far away. Mars thought she had already begun to forget he existed. He wandered down the dirt roads. Mud clung to his shoes. Puddles reflected the thin, pale sky. He passed the old mill. The wheel creaked in the wind. A man leaned on the fence, staring at nothing. Mars nodded, but the man didn't nod back. The barn smelled of hay and horses. A cow lowed, shaking her head. Mars imagined climbing into the hayloft and staying there all day, hiding from the world. But the wind rattled the boards, and he stepped back. There was nowhere to hide in a town that whispered about the dead. He thought about his father, about the long walks they had taken after supper, the way he taught Mars to throw a ball, to kick a rock just right, to listen to the wind in the fields. That father was gone, carried off in a flash, and nothing could bring him back. Mars's stomach growled. He had eaten little since the accident. He passed the market. The woman behind the counter didn't see him. He tried to ask for a loaf of bread, but the words stuck in his throat. He turned away. By noon, he was in the fields behind the town. Corn rose in neat rows, wet with rain. Mars ran his hands along the leaves. They brushed his fingers, cold and sharp. He felt small among them, swallowed by the endless green. The tracks called to him. He walked toward them. He could hear the faint hum of steel, distant and low. He remembered the trains he had watched as a boy, the ones that moved so fast, so loud. It felt like the earth itself shook. Somewhere out there, beyond the corn and the forests, there was life. There were towns that hadn't known his father, forests that hadn't seen him fall. He followed the tracks as they curved past the edge of town. Old telephone poles leaned like tired soldiers. The rails gleamed wet and black. Mars thought he could ride a train someday, feel the wind tear at his face, leave Red Willow behind for good. He stopped by the creek. Water ran cold and clear. Mars knelt and cupped it in his hands. He drank slowly. He stared at his reflection. The boy who looked back at him was small, thin, and pale. His eyes were wide, but something inside them had changed. They held a kind of hunger. The day passed slowly. Mars explored the edges of the town, the back roads, the small woods. Every corner held a memory, a place he had played, a place he had laughed, a place he had cried. But the town felt smaller now, narrower. He could not stay. By nightfall, he climbed a hill and looked back at Red Willow. Lights flickered in the houses. Smoke curled from the chimneys. The church steeple cut the sky like a thin finger. His mother's window was dark. She was probably sitting there, staring at nothing, waiting for him to return. He did not return. He walked down the hill and back to the tracks. He ran his hands along the steel. Cold, solid, real. Somewhere, a train whistled in the distance. He could feel it in his chest, a vibration, a promise. Mars lay in the grass near the rails, eyes on the stars, listening. The wind whispered through the trees. The crickets began to sing. The world was big, and he was small. But for the first time since the accident, he felt like he could move, like he could live. And maybe, somewhere out there, he would find someone who could teach him how. Chapter 3, First Steps. Mars stepped onto the tracks before the sun rose. The rails were cold, wet with dew. The world smelled of damp earth and metal. His boots made no sound on the ties, but the morning air carried everything else. The cry of a crow, the hum of distant engines, the rustle of grass. He did not look back. The town lay behind him, quiet and small. The house, the church, the fields. He carried them all in his mind, pressing them down, trying to forget, trying to move. The track stretched straight, flat, endless. He imagined a train coming, carrying him away. Somewhere else. Somewhere without the smell of grief. Somewhere without the memory of his father's face on the asphalt. His stomach growled. He had eaten nothing since the night before. The bread was gone. His fingers itched to find something, anything. He searched along the edges of the tracks, kicking stones and splashing through puddles. A crow dropped a piece of something. A scrap of paper? A bit of cloth? Mars picked it up. It smelled faintly of smoke. He stuffed it in his pocket. He didn't know why. It felt like a treasure. The wind shifted. It carried the smell of a nearby farm. Smoke, manure, wet hay. Mars followed it, hoping for food, hoping for something alive, something real. He found a barn with a loose board. Inside, he found an old apple, bruised but sweet. He ate it slowly, biting carefully, savoring the juice on his tongue. The tracks curved around a hill. Mars paused, listening. Somewhere far off, a train roared. The vibration ran through the ground, into his bones. His heart beat with it. He imagined the train stopping for him. He imagined climbing aboard and leaving Red Willow behind forever. But no train came. By noon, the sun had broken through the clouds. The mud had dried on his boots. His legs ached. His back ached. His stomach growled again. He pressed forward. Every tie underfoot was the same. Every bend in the tracks promised the same unknown, but he kept walking. A snake slipped through the grass, quick and smooth. Mars jumped back, heart pounding. The snake disappeared into the field. Mars laughed quietly. The sound surprised him. He hadn't laughed since before the accident. He walked past an abandoned farmhouse. The windows were broken. The door hung loose on its hinges. Inside, he found a loaf of bread wrapped in a torn sack. He ate half, saving the rest. He rested in the shade, leaning against the wall. The wind carried the smell of rain and earth, and something faintly sweet. He thought about his mother. He thought about the quiet she had kept since the accident. He thought about the town, and how small it had seemed even before. He wondered if she would search for him. He wondered if she even knew where he could go. By late afternoon, the tracks ran alongside a creek. The water ran cold and clear. Mars knelt and drank. He cupped the water, letting it run through his fingers. He imagined it carrying him somewhere, carrying him to a life different from this one. The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched across the fields. Mars's legs trembled with fatigue. He found a fallen tree to lean on. His head throbbed. His stomach growled again. He pressed his hand against it. It was empty, hollow. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to keep going. He passed a small grove of trees. The wind whispered through the leaves. Mars listened. He thought of his father. He thought of Red Willow. He thought of the tracks, straight and endless. He imagined the people he might meet. Men who lived on the rails. Men who knew the world beyond the farms and towns. He imagined a man sitting by a fire, rough and kind, who could teach him how to survive, how to live. The sky darkened. Stars began to appear. Mars lay on the grass, tired and cold. He felt the earth beneath him, firm and real. The wind carried the smell of smoke far away, of a fire someone had built in a shack he could not see. He closed his eyes. He could hear the distant whistle of a train. The vibration ran through the ground. He imagined it was calling him to something bigger, something free. He did not sleep. Not really. His body ached. His stomach growled. His hands were raw from gripping the rails. His mind raced with thoughts of trains, towns, people, freedom, danger. At dawn he rose. The earth was wet with dew. The tracks gleamed in the pale light. His boots were stiff. His legs shook. But he walked, step by step, tie by tie. The sun rose higher. He passed through fields, woods, and empty roads. He found a fallen apple, a wild berry bush. He caught a frog in a creek and let it go. Every small thing kept him moving. Every small thing reminded him he was alive. By midday, he reached a crossroads. 2 sets of tracks. He chose the B and O line, the one he had heard in stories. Somewhere along it, he imagined a man, someone who could teach him how to survive, how to live, how to be free. The wind carried the whistle of a train, close now, sharp and urgent. Mars froze. The rails vibrated under his hands. He imagined climbing aboard, leaving Red Willow behind forever. But he stayed on the ground. The train passed. Its roar shook the air. Mars pressed his face into his sleeve and shivered. His chest ached. His stomach burned. But he moved forward. By nightfall, he found a hollow under a cluster of sycamores. He lay down, pressed the damp grass to his face. He listened to the trains, the wind, the animals, the stars. His body ached. His stomach growled. His mind spun. And yet, in the ache, the hunger, the cold, he felt alive. He closed his eyes and imagined the man by the tracks, the one he had not yet met. He imagined a fire, warm and safe. He imagined lessons, stories, laughter. And for the first time, he believed he might find him. Mars did not sleep. Not really. He lay beneath the sycamores, listening to the wind, the trains, the night. Somewhere far away, freedom waited. Somewhere far away, life waited. And Mars walked toward it, step by step, tie by tie. Chapter 4. Stranger by the Tracks. Mars saw the shack before he smelled it. It was made of old road signs and scrap wood. Stop leaned crooked. Railroad crossing missing half its X. The boards were faded and cracked. Smoke curled from a small chimney. The wind rattled loose planks. Mars paused at the edge of the clearing. His boots sank in mud. He wiped his hands on his shirt. The shack smelled of smoke and wet wood. A man sat outside on a crate, hunched over a small fire. He wore a coat 2 sizes too big, and a hat that had once been respectable. His beard was gray and patchy, his eyes sharp. Mars's chest tightened. He wanted to call out. He wanted to run. He stayed still. The man looked up. "Well," he said, his voice rough and low. "Either you're lost, or you're running." Mars swallowed. He took a step forward. His voice stuck in his throat. He began. The man's eyes crinkled. He smiled, but it was a dry, rattle laugh. "I ain't gonna eat you," he said. "And if I was, you'd probably taste like mud anyway." Mars felt a small shiver of relief. He stepped closer. "My name's Indiana Jack," the man said, tipping his hat. "And you're trespassing on my kingdom." Mars nodded. I didn't mean to." Jack waved a hand. "Ain't no harm done. Town too small to mind." Mars looked at the fire. Small flames licked the tin, smoke curling up into the gray sky. Jack poked at the coals with a stick. "You walk far?" Jack asked. Mars shrugged. He did not know how far he had walked. He had stopped counting. He only knew he had left Red Willow behind. "Red Willow, huh?" Jack said. "Small town. Lots of folks thinking they're bigger than they are." He chuckled. "I've been all over. Trains, tracks, towns you ain't never heard of." Mars's mouth opened. He wanted to ask questions. About the trains. About the places Jack had seen. But the words felt too heavy. Jack noticed. "You can talk if you want. You can listen too. Both work fine." Mars sat on a log, close to the fire. He watched Jack. Jack's hands were rough. His nails blackened from smoke and work. He rolled a cigarette from tobacco he had found, lighting it carefully, inhaling deeply. "Got a name?" Jack asked. "Mars," he said. "Marche." "Huh. You got tired legs, Mars." "Yes," he said. "Good. Means you're alive." Jack laughed, low and rough. They ate together. Jack handed him a tin of beans. The smell made Mars's stomach clench. He had not eaten a real meal in days. He swallowed slowly, tasting warmth and salt and life. Jack drank from a bottle wrapped in paper. "Muscatel," he said. "Poor man's champagne." He smiled faintly. "Keeps you warm." Mars watched him. He wondered how a man could live like this. No home. No family. Just a shack in the tracks. Jack poked the fire. "You like trains?" he asked. I think so," Mars said. "I've never ridden one." Jack's eyes twinkled. "Never? Then you got life ahead of you." "I've rode 'em all. Silver Streak. Wabash Cannonball. Names don't matter. Wheels do." Mars stared at him. He wanted to know more. But he only nodded. The afternoon passed slowly. Mars watched the smoke curl, watched the fire, watched Jack. Jack told small stories in fragments. About towns, men, mistakes, laughter. Mars listened. Sometimes he laughed. Sometimes he only nodded. At one point, Mars asked, "Do you ever get lonely?" Jack paused. He poked the fire. "Every day," he said. "Every day I'm alone. But I choose it. You choose your chains. Some are invisible." Mars did not know what to say. He only watched the flames. As the sun lowered, shadows stretched long across the clearing. Mars realized he had not thought about Red Willow. Not about his mother. Not about the house. Not about the accident. Jack leaned back. "You tired, boy?" "Yes," Mars said. "Good," Jack said. "Means you're living." He smiled faintly. "You can sleep here. Roof's leaky, but fire keeps the worst off. Mars lay down on a patch of grass near the shack. He listened to the creak of boards, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of the rails. Jack sat by the fire, smoking, drinking muscatel, telling stories to himself. Mars felt safe for the first time in days. And yet, he felt a flicker of unease. Jack was free, wild, unbound. But he was also alone. Mars wondered if he could be like that someday. Or if being like that would kill him. Night deepened. Stars came out. The wind whispered through the trees. Mars closed his eyes. He could hear the faint whistle of a train far away. He could hear Jack's quiet hum. Somewhere in the night, a thought took hold in Mars's chest. The man by the tracks, the fire, the shack. Maybe he was what Mars wanted to become. Maybe he was also a warning. But for now, he would sleep. The fire would burn. The trains would roll. And for the first time, Mars felt the world might wait for him too. Chapter 5. Lessons on the Rails. The morning was gray and wet. Mars woke to the smell of smoke and damp earth. The fire Jack had kept smoldering had almost died. He rose slowly, muscles stiff from the cold ground. Jack stirred beside the fire, rolling the small tin of muscatel between his hands. "Morning," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, soft in the quiet. "You hungry?" Mars nodded. Jack handed him a tin of beans. The smell made him gulp. He ate slowly, chewing each bite, letting the warmth fill him. "First thing you gotta learn," Jack said, poking the fire, "is how to see the tracks. Hear 'em. Feel 'em. Don't wait for a whistle. Feel the ground. Feel the rails. You'll know a train before you see it." He led Mars to the tracks. The steel gleamed in the morning light. Drops of rain clung to it. Jack crouched low. "Lay your hand here," he said. Mars pressed his palm to the rail. "Feel that." Mars nodded. A faint vibration ran through his fingers. "That's a train, sometimes hours away, sometimes close. Doesn't matter. The ground tells you. Trust it." They walked the tracks. Jack pointed out holes in the ties, loose spikes, mudslides. "Step careful. One wrong move, you break a leg. One wrong move, you get caught." Mars listened, watching, feeling. He wanted to say something, but no words came. Jack's eyes were sharp, scanning everything. The man seemed to know the world in a way Mars did not. They stopped at a hollow under a tree. Jack produced a small bundle of cloth. "Food's better when you find it than when you carry it too far. You gotta learn patience." Inside the cloth were pieces of bread, some cheese, and an apple bruised but sweet. Mars ate slowly, savoring the taste. The fire burned low. Jack smoked quietly. "You see, kid," Jack said, "life on the rails ain't easy. Ain't clean. Ain't fair. But it's yours. You choose it. Every step, every bite, every breath, you choose it." Mars looked at him. "Do you ever get lonely?" Jack shrugged. "Every day. Every day I'm alone. But loneliness is different from being trapped. Being trapped's when someone else decides for you. Loneliness, that's your own. And sometimes it's better." They moved along the tracks for hours. Jack taught him how to spot railroad bulls, men who patrolled the lines. Look for boots. Look for shadows. Look for the smell. Don't be stupid. Don't get caught. Don't be careless. Mars tripped over a loose tie. Jack caught his shoulder. "Careful, Mars. The ground will kill you if you don't watch it." They rested by a creek. Mars cupped the water, drank slowly. Jack fished out a frog, studied it, then let it go. "Everything's a lesson," he said. "Even frogs. Even mud. Even the smell of smoke in the morning." By evening, they found a hollow under a grove of trees. Jack built a small fire. "This is home for the night," he said. "Don't get too comfortable. You gotta keep moving, keep learning, keep alive." Mars watched the flames. He felt something stirring inside him, something he could not name. Respect, curiosity, fear, admiration, all of it. Jack leaned back, staring into the fire. "You know why I live like this?" he asked. "'Cause I got no one telling me what to do. 'Cause I make my own choices. 'Cause the world's heavy, and I don't want to carry it for anyone else." Mars nodded slowly. He didn't say he wanted the same freedom. He didn't say he wanted to be like Jack, but he watched, and he listened, and he understood. The night deepened. Stars appeared. Crickets sang. The rails hummed faintly in the distance. Mars lay near the fire, exhausted, stomach still empty, eyes heavy. Jack smoked and watched him. "You'll be fine," he said quietly. "You got the heart. You got the eyes. You'll see the world." Mars drifted to sleep listening to the wind, the rails, the soft crackle of fire. He dreamed of trains, of towns, of forests, of freedom. He dreamed of a man who could teach him how to live. Morning came again. Jack woke him with a hand on his shoulder. "Move fast today," he said. "We'll find food, water, shelter. We'll keep alive. Keep your eyes open. Keep your hands ready." They walked. Mars's legs ached. His stomach growled. He stumbled over roots, over ties, over mud. Jack helped him up. "That's fine. You learn by falling." Along the way, Jack told stories. Short ones, funny ones, sad ones. Stories of men who got caught by the law. Stories of towns that vanished. Stories of trains that never stopped for anyone. Mars listened. Each story was a lesson, a warning, a map of life outside the town. By afternoon, Mars could see patterns in the land. Small hills, low dips, hollows where water collected. He could feel the vibration of the rails under his hands. He could hear the faint whistle of a train miles away. Jack stopped. "See that?" he asked. "A small hollow with broken boards and stones. Good place to sleep. Water nearby. Fire if you need it. Remember it. Remember it well." Mars nodded. He felt his chest tighten. He was learning. He was surviving. He was alive. By nightfall, Jack built a fire. Mars sat close, hands near the flames. The wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a train rolled past, its whistle cutting the air. Jack smoked and drank muscatel. "Life's a hard road," he said quietly. "Ain't nothing easy. But you got a choice. You move, you survive, you live." Mars watched him. He wondered if he could live like this. If he wanted to. If he should. The stars blinked in the sky. The rails hummed faintly. Mars pressed the fire's warmth to his chest. He closed his eyes. And for the first time since leaving Red Willow, he felt like he was learning what it meant to live. Chapter 6. Life of a Vagabond. Morning came damp and gray. Mars stirred, pressing his hands into the cold grass. Jack's fire was nearly dead. Smoke curled from a small stove inside the shack. Mars watched it rise, tracing its movement with his eyes, as though following a map of the day to come. Jack stirred. "Time to move," he said. "Tracks don't wait." Mars nodded. He was still learning, still weak from hunger and cold, but eager. They walked along the B&O line. The rails hummed faintly beneath their hands. Jack moved easily, barefoot at times, boots at others, stepping over mud, rocks, and loose ties. Mars stumbled now and then. Jack's hand caught him, steadying him. "Careful, boy," Jack said. "The ground doesn't forgive mistakes." They came to a small town. Nothing more than a cluster of buildings, a general store, and a tavern. Mars felt the walls of houses and people pressing in, different from the open fields. Jack led him to the edge, crouching low. "Watch," Jack whispered. A group of hobos sat near the station, smoking, talking in low voices. Jack greeted them casually. They nodded, some more warmly than others. Mars noticed the differences immediately. Some faces were kind, open. Others were closed, hard, suspicious. Jack talked to a man about a train arriving later that day. The man tipped his hat and handed Jack a small piece of bread. Jack offered half to Mars without a word. They walked on. Mars noticed the kindness in gestures, but he also noticed the glances, the sharp edges, the way some men's eyes lingered a second too long, as though measuring, weighing, deciding. Jack paused. "See that, Mars," he said. "Life out here ain't just fire and freedom. It's trust. And you give it wrong, you pay." Mars nodded, feeling a chill. He understood more than he wanted to. By noon, they stopped at a small creek to eat. Jack fished out a tin with beans, bread, and a small scrap of meat. He handed Mars half. Mars ate slowly. He could taste everything. The salt, the smoke, the effort of survival. Some men live in towns, safe, fed, warm, Jack said, poking the fire. Some live like us. Free, yes, but it ain't easy. Every day is a lesson. Every night is a choice. They moved again. Marce's legs were sore. His stomach grumbled. His mind felt sharp and dull at the same time, alert and weary. They came across another hobo camp. A fight was breaking out. Voices raised, fists swinging. Marce froze. Jack stepped closer. Sometimes, boy, you don't get to pick your fights, Jack said, but you get to choose if you watch or join. He stayed back. Marce stayed back. A man fell, another ran. Silence followed. Marce could feel his heart beating in the emptiness. Jack clapped a hand on his shoulder. That's life on the rails. You see it, you live it, you learn from it. Don't get hurt unless you have to. They kept walking. The day dragged long and heavy. The wind stirred leaves and dust. Marce felt the pull of freedom, but he also felt the weight of danger, of loneliness, of decisions made and consequences paid. By late afternoon, they came to an abandoned barn. Jack led him inside. The smell of hay, wet wood, and dust filled the air. He found some broken boards and set up a small fire. Home for the night, Jack said. He handed Marce a tin of beans. Eat, sleep, listen. Marce ate. He listened. The wind, the distant trains, the small noises of animals outside. He felt the world pressing against him, large and cold, but also full of life. Jack smoked quietly. You see, Marce, he said, life out here is simple. You eat, you sleep, you move. But simple don't mean easy. You make friends, you lose friends. You trust, you get burned. You survive, or you don't. Marce watched him. He wanted to ask questions. He wanted to know about the fights, the bread, the men, the trains, the loneliness. But he stayed quiet. He listened. He learned. Night fell. Stars came out. Crickets sang. Marce lay near the fire, stomach full, eyes heavy. He thought of the men they had passed, the kindness, the cruelty, the small lessons hidden in gestures and words. Jack watched him. You learn quick, boy, he said. But remember, freedom's heavy. Ain't no one to lean on but yourself. Marce pressed his hands to the fire, letting the warmth soak into his bones. He felt tired, cold, alive, and afraid all at once. He thought about Red Willow, about the house, about his mother, about the accident. But he also thought about the tracks, the fire, the man beside him, the life he was learning. He closed his eyes. He could hear the wind, the rails, the small creak of the shack. He could hear the faint whistle of a train in the distance. And he knew that out here, everything was a lesson. Every face, every smell, every step. He drifted into a shallow sleep, dreams filled with tracks, trains, men, and the wide, endless road. Chapter 7, Small Joys. Morning broke soft and pale. Marce woke to the smell of smoke and damp earth. The fire Jack had kept alive during the night was smoldering, sending tendrils of gray up into the cold air. Marce stretched stiff limbs and pressed his hands into the dirt, feeling the wet soil, the small stones, and the rough grass. Jack stirred. Morning, boy, he said, voice rough but calm. Stretch them bones. We move slow today. Ain't much reason to rush. Marce nodded, still tired. His stomach rumbled, reminding him he hadn't eaten much in the last 24 hours. Jack handed him a small tin of beans warmed by the fire. They ate quietly. The smoke rose, curling into the gray sky, twisting and bending in the morning wind. Jack poked at the fire with a stick, ashes drifting. Small joys, Marce. You notice em, you keep em. They keep you going. Marce tilted his head. Small joys. Jack smiled faintly. Sun on your back. Fire in your hands. Bread when you're hungry. Tracks under your fingers. They're small, but they keep you alive. Remember em. They left the hollow under the trees and followed the tracks, the steel glistening with dew. Marce felt the vibration under his hands as they walked, the subtle hum of the rails running through his fingers and into his chest. He realized he could feel it before he heard it, the distant, low rumble of a train far off. Jack noticed. "You're learning quick," he said. "Feel it. Listen. It ain't just tracks. It's the world talking." Mars smiled faintly. The sensation thrilled him, a small joy. The thought that he could know the world in such a way, even in the tiniest part, filled him with a quiet pride. They came across a shallow creek. Mars knelt, cupping the water in his hands. The coldness bit at his skin. He drank slowly, letting the chill travel down his throat. Jack joined him, his hands rough and scarred, cupping water alongside Mars. "Cold ain't bad," Jack said. "Keeps you alive. Keeps you awake. You feel alive when you're cold." Mars laughed quietly. "Cold's alive, then." Jack chuckled, low and dry. "Ain't alive like you and me, but it makes sure we notice the world." By mid-morning, they found a patch of wild berries. Mars picked carefully, stained his fingers with red juice. He tasted one, sweet and sharp. A small thrill shot through him. Jack smiled at his delight. "See, small joys," he said. "A berry, a ring of fire. They keep you moving." They walked past an abandoned farm. Mars noticed a cat slinking in the shadows. Its fur was matted, eyes wary. Mars crouched, reaching a hand slowly. The cat hesitated, sniffed, then disappeared. Jack watched him. "Patience, boy," he said. "You get too eager, you scare the world off. Let it come to you." Mars learned quickly. He moved with care. His steps became quieter, his eyes sharper. He noticed small changes. The hum of the rails, the wind in the trees, the distant whistle of a train. He realized each moment was part of the rhythm of life on the tracks. By noon, they stopped in a small hollow beside the tracks. Jack set a fire. They ate scraps of bread, beans, and a small piece of smoked meat Jack had tucked in his coat. Mars chewed slowly, savoring each bite. The taste, the warmth, the shared silence. It was a small joy, but it felt immense. Jack spoke quietly. "See, Mars, most folks never notice the little things. They chase the big ones, and they miss the world passing by. You don't. You see it." Mars nodded. He felt a flicker of pride. He was noticing. He was alive. They moved again in the afternoon. Mars's legs ached. His stomach reminded him it needed attention. But each step brought new sights. A deer drinking at a stream, a fox slipping through the grass, a hawk circling overhead. Jack pointed them out, taught Mars how to watch, to notice, to respect. "You see that?" Jack said. "Life don't wait for you to look. You gotta open your eyes." Mars nodded. He felt the pull of freedom, the thrill of movement, the hum of the rails beneath his hands. Small joys. He repeated the phrase in his mind like a prayer. By late afternoon, they came across a small bridge. Mars knelt to look at the water below. Fish darted in the current. He dipped his fingers in. The water was cold, alive. He splashed a little. Jack laughed quietly at him. "You're learning," he said. "Don't lose it. Don't forget small joys. They keep you moving, keep you thinking, keep you alive." Night approached. They built a fire beneath a hollow of trees. Mars pressed his hands to the flames, feeling warmth creep through his fingers. Jack smoked and watched him, a faint smile on his face. "You're doing fine, Mars," Jack said. "Tomorrow's another day. More rails, more trains, more lessons. But don't forget tonight. Remember it." Mars closed his eyes. He thought of the berries, the fire, the rails, the water, the wind. Each small joy stacked upon the next, a quiet chain holding him to life. Sleep came slowly, but it came. The wind whispered through the trees. The distant rails hummed. Trains far away sang in their rhythm. Mars dreamed of the tracks, of freedom, of movement, of Jack beside him. Morning came again. The fire was gone, leaving only smoke and ashes. Mars rose, feeling the ache in his muscles, the hunger in his belly, and the thrill of life in his chest. He stretched. He pressed his hands into the cold earth. Jack watched him. "You'll be fine," he said quietly. "You're learning. You notice. You survive." Mars smiled faintly. He felt the small joys settle in him, a quiet comfort. He felt the rails hum beneath his hands. He felt alive. And for the first time since leaving Red Willow, he felt like he could carry the world on his shoulders, one small joy at a time. Chapter 8. Crossroads and Choices. The sun rose pale over the tracks. Mars rubbed the sleep from his eyes, feeling the stiffness in his legs, the ache in his back, and the hollow in his stomach. Jack's fire had burned low through the night, leaving only a few glowing coals. "Morning, boy," Jack said, voice rough and low. "Tracks wait for no one. Move quick, but steady." Mars nodded. He ate slowly, picking at the last scraps of bread they had. The taste was dry and dusty, but it filled him enough to get moving. Jack handed him a small tin of water. "You'll need it today. It'll get harder." They left the hollow and followed the rails. Mars noticed the vibration under his hands, faint but constant. Each step carried him forward, but also deeper into the unknown. By mid-morning, they reached a fork in the tracks. One line curved gently into a forested area. The other ran straight toward a small town in the distance. Jack stopped. "Crossroads," he said quietly. "Every day out here you face him. Some you notice, some sneak up on you. Choices make you. Don't make the wrong ones." Mars swallowed. The fork felt like a test. His stomach tightened. The forest line promised mystery and potential danger. The town promised food and shelter, but also questions and rules. Jack lit a cigarette, smoke curling around his weathered face. Forest will teach you patience. Town will teach you caution. Either way, you learn. Mars hesitated. His legs felt heavy. The memory of Red Willow, the house, and his father lingered. He wanted safety. He wanted food. But the tracks called him forward, always forward. Jack clapped him on the shoulder. "Your choice, Mars. Own it. No one else will." Mars chose the forest. The trees rose thick and dark. Roots tangled the ground. The air smelled of damp leaves and moss. He moved carefully, eyes sharp. Jack followed silently, hands ready, senses alert. The forest grew dense. Light filtered through the canopy in pale beams. Birds called, leaves rustled, small animals darted through the underbrush. Mars felt alive and afraid all at once. By midday, they found a small clearing. Jack motioned for Mars to stop. "See that?" he asked. "A hollow in the ground, covered by branches, hidden from view. Good place to rest, hide, or watch. Never know who's coming." Mars knelt, feeling the dirt and leaves. He smelled smoke faintly, somewhere beyond the trees. Jack listened, head tilted. His eyes narrowed. "Someone's near," Jack said. "Might be friendly. Might not. Stay quiet." They waited. Minutes passed. Mars's stomach growled. His palms were damp. Every rustle of leaves made his heart jump. A man appeared, tall, thin, and dirty. His eyes were sharp. He carried a small bag. He looked like he had been living off the rails for months. Jack stepped forward casually, hands empty. "Afternoon," Jack said. "You lost." The man sneered. "Maybe. Who's asking?" Jack smiled faintly. "Name's Jack. Indiana Jack. And this here's Mars." He gestured to Mars. "We mean no harm." The man laughed, short and sharp. "Harm's everywhere, boy. Don't matter what you mean." Mars felt his chest tighten. His stomach ached. His hands trembled slightly. Jack reached into his coat, pulled out a piece of bread, and held it out. "Peace offering," he said. "Share it. Live a day longer." The man's eyes flicked to Mars. Something passed in the look. Curiosity, hunger, maybe respect. He nodded slowly, taking the bread. Jack exhaled smoke. "See, boy. Choices. You can fight, run, or share. Every choice is a lesson. Some good, some bad. You own the outcome." Mars watched closely. The man stayed a short while, ate, then disappeared into the trees. The tension lingered in the air, sharp and cold. They moved on. Mars's legs ached. His stomach rumbled. His mind spun with thoughts of what might have happened if Jack hadn't offered the bread. By late afternoon, they reached a stream. Mars knelt to drink, feeling the cold water run through his fingers. Jack fished out a small frog, studied it, then let it go. Mars smiled faintly. Small joys, he remembered. But the forest also held danger. Thorns cut his hands. Roots tripped him. Insects bit him. Every step reminded him that freedom had a price. Every choice carried risk. As evening approached, they found a small hollow beneath an oak. Jack set up a fire. Mars pressed his hands to the warmth, letting it soak into his bones. "You learned today, boy," Jack said quietly. "Not just survival. Choices, trust, fear. All of it shapes you. Don't forget. Ain't easy, but it's real." Mars nodded. He felt the weight of the day, the ache in his body, the hunger in his stomach. But he also felt alive. He had made choices. He had survived. He had learned. Night fell. Stars blinked in the sky. The rails hummed faintly in the distance. Trains moved far off, invisible but felt. Mars lay near the fire, listening, thinking, reflecting. He thought of the crossroads, the man, the bread, the forest. He understood more than he wanted to admit. Life on the rails was freedom, yes, but it was also full of danger, uncertainty, and hard decisions. He drifted into a shallow sleep, dreams filled with choices, rails, trains, and the winding path ahead. Morning came again. The fire was gone. Smoke lingered. Mars rose, pressing his hands into the cold earth. His legs ached, his stomach growled, but his chest felt light. Jack watched him. "You're learning," he said quietly. "You'll see. Choices follow you. You follow them. Life's heavy, but it's yours. Remember that." Mars nodded, looking down the forested tracks. Somewhere ahead, danger and freedom waited. He pressed forward, step by step, tie by tie, knowing the road would never be easy, but knowing he could walk it. Chapter 8. The Price of Freedom. The morning was quiet, the air sharp and pale with the hint of frost that hadn't yet lifted. Mars walked beside Jack, the forest thinning into fields as the rails stretched ahead. The crossroads of yesterday still lingered in his mind. The choice he had made in the woods, stepping away from the path of reckless curiosity. Jack glanced at him, voice low, steady. "Every choice counts, boy. You felt it yesterday. That weight you carried, it isn't gone. It follows you." Mars nodded, gripping the strap of his small bundle. Step by step, the rails seemed to hum beneath his boots, reminding him that freedom had rhythm and consequence. By midday, the outskirts of a small town appeared, dusty and sun-bleached, silent except for the faint clatter of livestock and children's laughter echoing in the distance. Jack slowed, eyes narrowing. "Keep your head down. Freedom ain't always a friend, and curiosity, well, it has teeth." Mars felt a flutter of excitement, tinged with unease. The streets were emptying for lunch, windows open to let in the breeze, laundry flapping on lines. And then he saw her. A girl, perhaps a little older than him, leaned casually against a fence. Golden hair glinted in the sun. Her eyes were bright and warm, and she smiled a slow, inviting smile. Mars felt a strange tug at his chest, a mixture of loneliness, curiosity, and longing. "Hey there," she called, her voice lilting. "You're alone." Mars's lips parted, throat tight. "Yes," he murmured. Her smile widened. "I can show you a place to rest. Just for a while." She held out her hand. It was warm, certain, beckoning. Mars hesitated. Jack's words from yesterday echoed faintly. Wait, choice, consequence. But the warmth in the girl's eyes, the comfort she promised, overpowered the caution lingering in him. Step by step, he moved toward her. She led him down a narrow alley, quiet, the town's hum fading behind them. The air grew warmer, heavier with the scent of bread, and something faintly sweet. Mars's heart hammered. He wasn't sure if it was fear, excitement, or the thrill of being trusted. Inside a small room, dim and cozy, she offered him food. Bread, cheese, a cup of water. Mars ate, hands trembling slightly, feeling relief that was almost intoxicating. The walls felt close, safe, like a shelter from the wide, unpredictable world outside. Then she came closer, brushing against his shoulder, her gaze searching, playful, predatory. Fear flared in Mars's chest, sudden and sharp. He realized too late that he had been led into danger. Not the physical kind he had imagined in the woods, but something far subtler, far more insidious. Before he could act, the doorway darkened. A shadow filled the room. Jack's voice cut through the haze. "Mars." The girl recoiled. Jack stepped forward, eyes hard, expression steady. His presence was authority itself, a wall against the world's chaos. He grabbed Marce's shoulder and pulled him back, gently but firmly. "You stay away from shadows you don't understand," Jack said quietly, voice low but edged with warning. "Freedom without guidance will chew boys up, and most never see it coming. You saw the reflection, now remember it." Marce pressed his palms to his knees, trembling. The room's warmth suddenly felt suffocating. The girl's smile faded, leaving only the emptiness of consequences. Marce understood for the first time what Jack meant. Freedom without guidance wasn't adventure. It could be a trap, a lesson in the shadows, a test of choice and character. Jack led him outside into the harsh sunlight. Dust swirled around their boots. Marce's chest ached with realization. The town, the girl, the bread, the near mistake, all of it pressed on him. "Step carefully," Jack said quietly. "Every choice leaves a mark. You'll carry some quietly, some like a stone in your chest. But now you know. Freedom has teeth, boy, and you felt them." They walked past the edges of the town, through the fields where the rails hummed faintly beneath their boots. Marce kept his gaze low, reflecting on the near mistake, the sharp taste of fear, and the warmth of Jack's presence. The lesson was raw and unyielding. Freedom carried a cost, innocence could be lost, and choices demanded awareness. The sun dipped low in the sky as they reached a grove of tall trees. Marce pressed his hands into the cool earth, letting the lessons sink deep. Jack built a small fire nearby, smoke curling lazily into the dusk. "Remember this," Jack said finally. "Temptation will always come. The world is full of promises that hide teeth. You survived this, boy. You survived because you stepped back when you needed to. That's the first real measure of you." Marce lay near the fire, listening to the wind in the branches, feeling the forest breathe around him. Shadows clung to the edges of his vision, but he understood them now. He had touched danger and stepped away. He had survived the first true cost of freedom. The night was long, filled with quiet reflection. Stars peeked through the tree canopy. Marce felt older, heavier, wiser. He had seen a shadow of himself, the cost of unchecked freedom, and lived. Morning came pale and gray. Marce pressed his hands to the gravel of the rails, chest steady. Jack handed him water. "Step carefully, boy. The shadows follow. But so do the lessons." Step by step, tie by tie, they walked on. The lessons of freedom, consequence, and survival etched into Marce's heart. The grove faded behind them, and the forest stretched ahead, leading toward the cave that would become a place of reflection, grief, and understanding. Marce's chest ached, but the ache was tempered by clarity. He had survived temptation, learned the cost of freedom without guidance, and stepped closer to understanding who he might become. Chapter 9 was passed down. The morning was gray, the mist thick over the tracks. Marce rose slowly, pressing his palms into the damp earth. His legs ached, his stomach was empty, but his chest carried a quiet anticipation. Jack had already packed a small fire and gathered some supplies. "Morning, boy," he said, voice low and rough. "Today, I'm taking you somewhere. A place that means something. You'll see." Marce followed him through the forest, boots sinking into mud, branches scraping his arms. His mind wandered to Red Willow, his mother, the empty house, the accident. A heaviness pressed on him, but he kept moving. They reached a ridge where jagged rocks broke the skyline. Jack paused. "Up there," he said, pointing to a dark cave mouth. "Came here first with my father. Haven't been back in years. He showed me the ropes, taught me the world ain't always kind, and that survival, well, it's more than just keeping alive." Marce looked up, heart tightening. The cave loomed dark and wide, swallowing the fading light. Something in Jack's voice made the forest quiet around them. "Your father?" Marce asked softly. Jack nodded, a shadow passing over his weathered face. "Died young. Too soon. Left me with tracks, woods, and lessons." His jaw tightened. "He showed me this cave. Said every man needs a place he can call his own, even if it's just for a moment, even if the world wants to take it from him." Marce felt a lump in his throat. He thought of his own father, gone so suddenly, leaving him lost. He understood, in some small way, the ache Jack carried. They climbed the ridge slowly, stones cutting into Marce's palms. He stumbled once, and Jack caught him with a firm hand. "Careful," Jack said. "The ground's patient, but it don't forgive mistakes." Higher now, the cave mouth appeared, a dark slit in the rock, shadows pooling inside. Jack knelt. "Watch your head." Marce stepped inside. The air was cool, damp, smelled of earth and old fires. Streaks of charcoal on the walls hinted at long-past flames. The cave was wide, enough for several men to sit or hide wagons in years gone by. Jack settled on a flat rock, motioning for Marce to do the same. "This is the place he showed me first. My father. Only other man I ever saw move through life like he meant to. Strong, quiet, careful. Gone too soon." He closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. Marce pressed his hands into the stone floor, tracing its rough texture. I know what you mean," he whispered. "My father, he died in a car accident. I keep thinking I should have done something. Could have." Jack placed a hand on Marce's shoulder. "Ain't your fault, boy. Life don't work like that. We do the best we can with what we get. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it ain't. You carry the memory. You keep moving. That's all." Marce swallowed hard. Tears stung his eyes. He looked around the cave. Imagine Jack as a boy, learning the ropes, learning how to survive, how to move, how to see. And he imagined his own father, taking him up hills, showing him the world, leaving him now only with memory. Jack gestured to the walls. "See these marks? Scratches. Charcoal. Left by outlaws, travelers, and men who needed to hide, survive, live another day. My father taught me to read it. Each mark tells a story. Each story a lesson." Marce nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the cave pressing in. The walls held life and death, survival and loss, freedom and danger. Jack leaned forward. "You know, boy, sometimes I feel like I'm still that 12-year-old, looking up to him, wondering if I can do what he did. Keep moving. Keep alive. Don't fall. Don't break. And now, I see you. I see myself in you." Marce's chest tightened. "I feel it too," he said quietly. Like he left me a piece of him. And you're showing me the same thing." Jack smiled faintly, rough lines creasing his face. That's what fathers do, even when they're gone. Teach you the things they can't carry with them. Show you paths you'll walk alone, and the courage to keep walking." They sat in silence. Marce pressed his hands to his knees, feeling alive and fragile at the same time. He thought of the tracks stretching away, the forest, the fires Jack had built, and the small joys Jack had taught him to notice. "You ever feel scared?" Marce asked, voice trembling slightly. Jack's eyes softened, gazing into the shadows. "Every day, boy. Every day I move through fear. But fear keeps you alive. Fear teaches you where to step, where not to. Don't think it's weakness. It's knowledge. And sometimes it keeps you human." Marce's tears came silently, hot against the cool stone. He pressed his face to his knees, letting the grief and the memory and the comfort mingle together. Jack didn't speak, just sat beside him, steady, a presence that anchored him. After a long while, Jack reached into his coat and pulled out a small scrap of bread. "Eat. Keep your strength. You'll need it." Marce took it, biting slowly. The taste was simple, but it carried weight. Warmth, survival, memory, and a strange comfort. Jack poked at the fire he built from small sticks and dry moss. Sparks lifted into the cave ceiling. "See, boy, life's made of moments. Hard ones, tender ones, lost ones. Remember the good. Remember the lessons. Remember the weight. Carry it with you. And don't let it break you." Marce nodded. I think I understand." Jack placed a hand over his shoulder. "You do. But you'll also learn in your own way. My father taught me here. You learn, too. And maybe one day, you teach another boy, in some place like this." Marce pressed his hands to the firelight, to the stone beneath him, to the warmth of the man beside him. He felt alive, afraid, comforted, connected. Night fell. Stars gleamed faintly through the cave mouth. The wind whispered. The forest stood still outside. Mars lay near the fire, feeling the memory of fathers, his and Jack's, pressing into him, teaching him, holding him steady. Morning came pale and gray. The fire had burned low. Smoke drifted toward the cave mouth. Mars rose, muscles aching, chest heavy but steadier than before. Jack handed him a tin of water. Time to move, Mars. Rails wait. Life waits. But remember this cave. Remember the weight, the comfort, the lessons. Carry it with you and move. Mars nodded. Step by step, tie by tie. He climbed from the cave. He pressed his palms to the cool rock one last time, feeling the memory of Jack's father, of his own father, of loss, of survival. The tracks hummed faintly in the distance. Freedom, danger, and choice waited. But so did memory, fire, and small joys that kept him alive. Chapter 10. Reflections on the Rails. The rails were quiet that morning, the steel damp with dew. Mars walked beside Jack, his breath fogging the air. The world felt hushed, like it was holding its breath. He thought of the cave, the way the stone had been cool beneath his hands, the way the firelight had climbed the walls and made shadows of men long gone, the way Jack's voice had softened when he spoke of his father. That place had felt still, untouched by time, a place where loss could sit without being chased away. Mars carried it with him now, like a small weight in his chest. And then there was the girl. Not her face exactly, but the feeling. How easy it had been to step toward warmth without knowing what lay beneath it. How freedom could open its arms and still mean harm. He understood now that wanting comfort didn't make you weak, but wanting it blindly could cost you something you couldn't get back. Jack hadn't said much about it since. He didn't need to. They walked until the rails led them toward a small town. No more than a handful of buildings, a grain silo, a water tower leaning just a little to the east. Smoke rose from chimneys. A bell rang somewhere, hollow and slow. "We won't stay long," Jack said. "Just water. Maybe bread. Then we move on." Mars nodded. They entered the town quietly. Heads turned. A man on a porch paused mid-chew. A woman pulling laundry stiffened. Mars felt it then, the shift in the air. Not fear exactly. Recognition. Jack felt it too. His shoulders squared, but his pace stayed even. Inside the general store, the floorboards creaked. The clerk looked up, eyes narrowing just a touch. "You," the man said, not loud. Jack rested his hands on the counter. "Just water and bread." The clerk didn't move. "You got a name?" Jack met his eyes. "I do." The silence stretched. From outside came the sound of boots. Then another voice. Low. Certain. That him. Jack exhaled through his nose. Mars's stomach tightened. Two men stepped into the store, badges dull with age. One rested a hand near his belt. Not eager. Just ready. "You're not welcome here," the taller one said. "Haven't been for a long time." Jack nodded once. "Didn't plan on staying." "You never do." The clerk stepped back. "Last time you came through, there was trouble." Jack's voice stayed calm. Trouble follows men who don't move on when they should. The lawman's eyes flicked to Mars. "And the boy?" Jack turned slightly, just enough to put himself between them. "He's passing through." The lawman studied Mars. Not cruelly, not kindly either. Town doesn't need trouble. Jack's jaw tightened. Neither does the boy. Outside, more boots gathered. A horse snorted. Someone spat. The taller lawman stepped aside. "You leave now. Both of you. Don't stop. Don't look back." Jack nodded. "Fair enough." They walked out together. The moment their boots hit the dirt road, the tension broke loose. Voices rose. Someone shouted. A rock clattered near Jack's feet. "Move," Jack said quietly. They moved. Past the last house. Past the fields. The sound of the town followed them, angry, fearful, loud. Not chasing yet. Just pushing. Then a shot cracked the air. Not aimed. A warning. Jack grabbed Mars's arm. "Run." They ran. Down an embankment. Through brush that tore at their clothes. Mars's lungs burned. His legs screamed. The sound of boots followed, uneven but close. They cut toward the tracks. A second shot echoed. Dirt jumped near the rail. Jack didn't swear, didn't shout. He just ran harder. They crossed the tracks and dropped into a shallow ditch. Jack pressed Mars down, his body shielding him. The sound of men passed overhead, shouting, confused. Mars pressed his palms into the dirt. Cold. Solid. He thought of the cave again. How safe it had felt. How rare that kind of stillness was. He thought of the girl. How fast safety could turn. The world wasn't built for staying. The voices faded. Jack waited, counted breaths, then nodded. They moved again, slower now, slipping back into the trees. When they finally stopped, Mars bent over, gasping. Jack crouched beside him, hand firm on his back. "You did good," Jack said. Mars looked up. "They hate you." Jack shrugged. "Some do. For things you did, for things I survived." Mars thought about that. The sun dipped lower. The rails hummed faintly nearby. "There ain't many places left for men like me," Jack said. Not bitter, just true. That's the price of living outside lines. Mars nodded. He felt it now. The cost. The weight. "But you," Jack continued, "you still got choices." Mars looked toward the horizon. The rails. The road home he hadn't taken yet. "I know," he said. They walked on. Behind them, the town settled back into itself, already forgetting their faces. Ahead, the rail stretched on, indifferent and endless. Mars pressed his palms together as he walked, feeling the echo of stone, firelight, warmth, and fear. He was no longer running just to escape. He was moving because he understood. And that, he knew, was the difference. Chapter 11, the end of the line. They walked before dawn. The sky was pale and unfinished, the air cold enough to sting. The rails lay dark with dew, stretching forward without promise. Mars walked beside Jack, matching his stride without thinking about it. That was how it had been since the town. Movement without discussion, forward without question. Jack hadn't complained, but he had slowed. Mars noticed the way Jack's steps shortened, the way he paused longer when they climbed even a slight rise. When Jack stopped, he did it carefully, lowering himself like a man who knew his body no longer argued the way it once had. "You all right?" Mars asked. Jack nodded. "I'm here." They walked on. The land opened up into long fields broken by scrub and river grass. The rails hummed faintly beneath their feet, alive in a way Mars had come to recognize. Somewhere far off, a train whistle sounded, low, steady, indifferent. Jack stopped near a stand of cottonwoods by the tracks. "Let's sit a minute," he said. Mars felt something tighten in his chest. Jack didn't usually ask. They sat on the gravel embankment. Jack leaned back against a tree, breathing slow and shallow, like each breath had to be measured. The wind moved through the leaves overhead. "You remember that town?" Jack asked. Mars nodded. "I remember." Jack's eyes stayed on the rails. "That shot, it wasn't meant to scare. Men like to believe warning shots don't count." Mars looked at him sharply. "Jack!" Jack sighed. He reached inside his coat and pulled the fabric aside. The shirt beneath was darkened, stiff with dried blood. The wound sat just below his ribs, ugly and swollen now. Mars's breath caught. "You were hit." Jack nodded once. "Felt it right away." "Why didn't you tell me?" Mars said, his voice breaking despite himself. Jack turned his head slowly. "Because I needed you walking, not waiting. And because I knew." "Knew what?" "That it wasn't coming with me much farther." Mars shook his head. "We could have found help. A doctor. Someone." Jack smiled faintly. "From where, boy?" Mars pressed his palms into the dirt, grounding himself. The earth felt solid, patient. "How long?" Mars asked. "Since the edge of town." Jack said. "Been leaking quiet ever since." They sat in silence. The rails hummed. The world did not pause. Jack shifted, wincing. "Funny thing about getting shot," he said. "Ain't always the pain that gets you. It's the waiting, knowing your body's already decided." Mars swallowed hard. "You don't have to be alone." Jack looked at him then, really looked. His eyes were tired but clear. I ain't, he said. The train whistle sounded again, closer now. Jack listened to it, his expression softening. You remember the cave? Jack asked. Mars nodded. I remember. That place taught me something. Jack said. Stillness don't mean safety. It just means quiet. World don't stop because you found a good place to sit. Mars thought of the cave, the cool stone, the firelight, the way it had held memory without judgment. And the girl. Jack continued gently. You learned something there too. Mars nodded. That wanting comfort don't mean it's safe. Jack smiled. That's right. He coughed then, a deep, wet sound. Mars moved closer, gripping Jack's arm. Jack's breathing grew uneven. You listen to me now, Jack said. You don't owe this road your life. Don't mistake movement for meaning. You take what you learned and you choose where to stop. Mars's eyes burned. What about you? Jack's voice was steady. I already chose. Another breath. Shallower. Jack reached out, his hand finding Mars's wrist. His grip was weak, but deliberate. You did good, Jack said. Better than I did at your age. You listened. You saw the cost. Mars leaned in close. I won't forget you. Jack nodded. I know. The train thundered past then, close enough to shake the ground, wind tearing through the trees. Mars pressed his palms into the earth, feeling it vibrate through him. When the sound faded, Jack's grip loosened. Mars looked at him. Jack's eyes were open, fixed on the place where the rails disappeared into distance. Jack, Mars whispered. Jack did not answer. The world kept moving. The river nearby flowed on. The leaves rustled. Somewhere a bird called. Mars stayed there a long time. He rested his forehead against Jack's shoulder, just for a moment, like a boy who had nowhere else to go. He pressed his palms into the dirt beside him, into the place where Jack had stopped moving. I'll carry it, he whispered. All of it. The sun climbed higher. The day went on. Mars gathered Jack's things carefully, folded the coat, closed his eyes. He stacked stones near the cottonwood, slow and deliberate. When he finished, he stood back. Jack looked like a man at rest. The rails hummed softly nearby. Mars turned toward them. He did not run. He walked, step by step, tie by tie, carrying the weight of lessons, of freedom, of loss. And for the first time since his father died, Mars understood something fully. Some men don't make it home. They make sure you can. Chapter 12, The Price of Freedom. Mars came home in the fall. The fields outside Red Willow had turned the color of rusted tin, corn stalks standing brittle and hollow. The road into town was narrower than he remembered, or maybe he was wider now. His shoulders set different, his step measured instead of hurried. He walked the last mile. He could have hitched a ride. Cars passed now and then, slowing, drivers studying him with the same look men once gave Jack. But Mars didn't lift his thumb. He wanted the ground beneath his feet, wanted to feel the distance close. The town came into view slowly. Church steeple first, then the water tower with its faded lettering, then the roofs crouched low against the wind. Nothing looked changed. That unsettled him more than if everything had been new. The house stood where it always had. White paint peeled near the porch steps. One shutter hung loose. The yard was overgrown, weeds pushing up stubborn and wild. Mars stopped at the gate and stood there a long time, gripping the wood. His mother opened the door before he knocked. She looked thinner, older. Her hair was pinned back tight, streaked with gray she hadn't had before. For a moment, she just stared at him, like he was something her eyes hadn't learned how to trust yet. Then she stepped forward and held him. She didn't cry at first. Neither did he. They stood like that, two people holding what was left. Inside, the house smelled the same, wood polish, dust, something faintly sweet. His father's chair still sat by the window. Mars's eyes went to it without thinking. That night, he slept in his old bed. He didn't sleep much. In the weeks that followed, Mars settled into a quiet routine. He helped where he could, took work at the feed store, mended fences for neighbors who remembered him as a boy but looked at him now like he was something else. At night, he sat on the porch. Sometimes he thought he heard the rails. The world felt smaller than it had on the road. Safer maybe, but tighter. He noticed how people watched each other, how the town remembered every mistake, how names followed men longer than lessons did. He thought of Jack often, thought of the way he'd walked without stopping, the way he knew which towns to avoid, the way he never stayed long enough to be owned. One evening, Mars found himself walking past the edge of town, past the last houses, toward the old spur line that no longer carried freight. He stood there, listening to nothing, and felt the pull of movement. But he didn't go. Instead, he sat on a rock and remembered. The cave. The firelight on stone. Jack's voice low and steady. The girl's smile that had promised comfort and taken something else instead. The sound of boots on gravel when the law had come running them out of town. And finally, the cottonwoods. The weight of Jack's hand loosening. The rails humming like they always had. He understood now what Jack had meant. Freedom wasn't the absence of rules. It was the cost you agreed to carry. Winter came early that year. Snow settled over Red Willow, quiet and clean. Mars chopped wood, hauled water, fixed what could be fixed. He spoke little. One night, his mother sat across from him at the table. "You don't talk much about where you've been," she said gently. Mars looked at his hands. "There isn't much to say." She studied him. "You look like your father did, sometimes, when he came back from the road." Mars nodded. "He taught me things, even after he was gone." She reached across the table and touched his wrist. "I'm glad you came home." "So am I," Mars said and meant it. Spring softened the fields. Marse gruta ayer. Broader. The boy had been loosened its grip on him slowly, like a coat outgrown. He kept a small tin under his bed. Inside it were a few things. A scrap of cloth, a matchbook from a town he didn't remember the name of, and a smooth stone from beneath the cottonwoods. Jack hadn't owned much, but he'd left something behind. Years later, long after Mars was grown, long after the rails had thinned and the trains passed less often, someone would ask him why he never left again. Mars would think for a moment. Then he'd say, "Because I learned what moving costs." And sometimes, late at night, when the wind was right, he'd swear he heard the hum of rails in the distance, not calling him away, just reminding him they were there, waiting. Not everyone makes it home, but some men make sure you can. And Mars carried that truth quietly, the way Jack had carried his wound, without complaint, without spectacle, until it became part of who he was. The end.